Welcome to Australia. We are the lucky country, so let's keep it that way.
Welcome back to another video in the series of reviewing One Nation's 29 policies that will most likely be taken to the next federal election in 2028. So in this video, we're going to be going through One Nation's new housing policy, where it outlines the COVID-19 impacts on housing, One Nation's proposed solutions, and the potential benefits of the policy to the Australian people. Yay! So let us know in the comments what you think and whether or not One Nation is worth voting for in 2028. Before we get into it, let's have a quick look at Australia's current housing numbers so you can judge for yourself if One Nation's housing policy is fit for purpose.
Building more Australian homes. Homes for Aussies.
So these housing targets and progress data are taken from the Australian government's reporting websites. And as you can see, the 5-year period between 2024 and 2029 needs approximately 1.2 million homes built by June 2029. The progress as of early 2026 is only 174,000 to 177,000 homes that have been built. However, 240,000 homes are required to be built on an annual basis to meet the housing target, which has left a current shortfall of approximately 65,000 homes throughout Australia. In other words, we are severely behind these housing construction targets within the first 2 years alone. But how have the states and territories performed, you may be wondering? No state and/or territory has met their 20% targets, with Victoria and New South Wales outperforming all other regions, with 18 and 11% respectively completed. If these trends continue, there will be approximately 938,000 homes built of the 1.2 million homes target over the 5-year development period. This is an anticipated shortfall of approximately 262,000 homes throughout Australia, or only a 78% success rate if construction maintains the same trajectory. So let's ask ourselves 2 questions to consider as we go through One Nation's housing policy. 1. Could the construction business turnover throughout the country be a reason for the shortfall? And 2. Can Pauline Hanson's housing policy resolve these industry issues? And as you can see, the construction sector business turnover is quite alarming. For every 10 new construction businesses that enter the market each year, approximately 8 existing businesses exit each year. On average, between 2020 and 2025, there were approximately 87,000 new construction sector businesses created, and 71,000 construction businesses exited the market. And yes, that leaves about 15,000 additional construction sector businesses growth each year. But how does such a large turnover affect stable productivity? Let me know in the comments if you have any experiences within this sector. And also, according to government data, approximately 50% to 60% are sole traders entering and exiting the industry, who are the core individuals actually doing the work. And this graph shows the greater than 10,000 companies that have gone into insolvency between 2022 and 2025 over the 4-year period. How do you think this trend will affect national housing supply targets if it continues to double by the thousands of companies going into insolvency over the next few years and beyond? A few questions to contemplate. How many sole traders are affected when a single company exits the market? How will the continual inflationary government spending affect housing markets in the next 5 years? And at the same time, intake migration exacerbates our country's demand with fewer housing stock being supplied. Not to mention the already cost of living pressures affecting materials and transport costs of our everyday living expenses. As you know, we can all relate to the current fuel shortages. So let's have a read through One Nation's current housing policy and let us know in the comments what you think, what you would change and how you would improve social housing, affordable housing, general market incentives to increase stock availability. And can migration be an answer if construction-related occupations are prioritised? One Nation plans to introduce a 5-year moratorium on charging GST on building materials to help reduce the cost of new housing and support the construction industry. This policy is aimed at addressing the rising costs of building materials and ensuring more Australians can afford to own a home. The construction industry is facing severe financial pressures, with the rising cost of materials contributing to the collapse of many businesses. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, timber costs have risen by more than 200%. Electrical materials have risen almost 200%. Plumbing materials and fixtures have increased by around 100%. After labour costs, these material price hikes are the biggest factor in the collapse of construction businesses. Government charges, new regulations, and requirements, including mandatory disability compliance for all new homes, are pricing Australians out of home ownership. One Nation's solution. One Nation is committed to reducing the cost of new homes and stabilising the construction sector. Our plan includes a 5-year GST moratorium on building materials used in new homes up to a value of $1 million. A review of excessive government charges that make up to 44% of the cost of new homes. Removing mandatory disability compliance requirements for all new homes, allowing Australians to choose their home design without unnecessary cost burdens. The benefits. More affordable housing. Eliminating GST on building materials will immediately reduce costs for new home construction. Stronger construction industry. Builders and developers will have more certainty and financial stability, reducing business closures. Increased home ownership opportunities. More Australians will be able to enter the housing market without excessive government-imposed costs. Less government waste. Instead of wasteful spending, One Nation's policy focuses on reducing unnecessary financial burdens on Australians. Freedom of choice. Australians should have the right to build homes that suit their own needs, rather than being forced into costly government-mandated designs. One Nation's GST moratorium on building materials is a practical, common-sense solution to address Australia's housing crisis, support the construction sector, and make home ownership more affordable. We believe in putting Australians first and ensuring housing policies are built on fairness, affordability, and economic stability. So what do you guys think about One Nation's housing solutions and benefits in today's housing challenges? The following is my opinion. It would be great if One Nation provided a more in-depth policy with worked examples, such as numerical data outlining timber and electrical costs per 3-bedroom house of approximately 150 square metre floor area in each state and territory, and also within city and regional urban areas for comparison. Also, add potential development incentive programs to guide developers building homes where they are most needed. You could do this with a geographic information system analysis and statistically evaluate the distribution of existing housing stock, locations with highest and lowest in demand, and types of developer incentives to attract housing to those areas would be a great analysis in my humble opinion. Here is a quick video of Pauline talking on a number of topics surrounding housing issues.
With me now is One Nation leader Pauline Hanson. Pauline, it really frustrated me throughout the election campaign, and I'm a young man, that there was no message really from the coalition that would speak to something that young people would be interested in or need. The number one issue in this country is housing affordability. And if the coalition could get on top of that, and of course the continuation of conservatism, for people to believe in conservatism, they need to have some ownership over something. And that means owning a home where you can get married and raise a family. I mean, these are the building blocks of Australian society. It is bread and butter youth policy. I don't know why the coalition isn't getting on top of this stuff.
You were spot on with that, and I was about to say that with housing affordability, job security, which is another thing. Labor has bought a lot of the young votes with the HEX debt. So getting rid of that, and also propping up their deposit on their house to actually get in the housing market, which I think is going to see a lot of the young ones fall over with that, because they've still got to make the repayments to their debt. But the Liberal Party, and it doesn't surprise me, Caleb, in 2018 I put a policy forward about getting apprenticeships going, 100,000 apprenticeships, which finally I had to take the coalition kicking and screaming to introduce the policy on apprenticeships, which they finally did, and 100,000 apprenticeships was created with that policy. They weren't interested in that. They don't have any idea about the young ones. And I'll tell you another thing too. There was a young fellow who wanted to join the Liberal Party. So anyway, because he'd had a photo with me, they wouldn't have him part of the party because he had a photo with me.
Really?
They're actually, Yeah, they're about, yeah, because he had a photo with me when he was 15, so they wouldn't take him on. You know, I'm proud to say that I've launched the Young One Nation Party this year, and it's been fantastic to hear from them what their concerns are. You have to bring them on the journey with you. You have to involve them. You have to ask them what they want, how they see their future, and that's how moving forward with the young ones. We connected a lot with the young ones through our cartoons. It's waking them up to it because they've been brainwashed in the educational system for the last 3 decades, 30 years, and it has infiltrated our system. No critical thinking, but it's been bought. The vote's been bought. We need to educate the kids, explain about politics, which we don't do enough in our universities and or in our educational system.
Yeah, you're quite right. And I mean, the point you raise about the HECS debt is true too. I mean, anecdotally, I've heard quite a number of people who voted for Labor just on that basis alone, because they thought, well, he's going to wipe some of my student debt off. So I'd be stupid from a selfish point of view. I would be stupid not to vote for that. So I can understand why they did. But there are things that I think could be sold as youth policy that you don't typically think of as youth policy. The one that really worries me is public debt. I mean, you know, this financial year we'll hit $1 trillion in federal government debt. And who's going to have to pay that off? Young people. So why can't we turn things like that around and say, look, your parents and your grandparents are basically consigning you to a life of financial servitude to the government because you're the one who's going to pay off all this debt. We've got to turn this around so that you've still got a country to look after when you're older.
Caleb, a lot of people, not even young ones, but the older generation don't understand that it's the taxes that we pay, whether it's through the GST or any taxes that we pay, we buy an item or anything like that, the taxes we pay through our income tax, that is actually gives us the services, and it's money that goes in the government for them to spend for our services and what we need to run the country. People don't see beyond that. They don't understand. They don't understand if the government runs out of money, they can't afford to pay for decent hospital, healthcare, aged homes, all the rest of it. People don't look that far. People have become so self-centred these days. It's all about me. What is in it for me? And the whole fact is, because they're doing it so tough, they have to say, right, I've got to do the best for me. How do I survive? The country's changed so much since I was, you know, a girl growing up here and a young woman. And that's how I see the problem is that until the government reins in their spending and stops taxing the people, and this is another thing, our tax that we had for income splitting. So those young families, whereas the wife can stay home with the children, so whoever wants work, whether or the male wants to stay home with the children, I don't care. Income split, so that will actually save them money. You know, split their income, so you're paying tax on the two. You know, two people share the income, the tax.
I agree.
So anyway, these are things that need to be changed.
Well, there it is. That's One Nation's housing policy. Is it fit for purpose? Can it be further developed? Can it be combined with immigration policies to increase construction-related occupations to meet supply and demand issues? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.